everybody. Glad you're all here. Well, we have a last panel, looks like. So yeah, this is a panel, Cosmos Hub in 2025, where we got an incredible lineup here, Ethan, Carter, and Noam, all who are basically been key players in shaping the Cosmos Hub's future. And our goal today is to really just explore what the next 12 months of the hub might be. We'll be digging into how we can find a winning narrative that sticks and how the hub can stay competitive in a rapidly evolving ecosystem. And I'll be throwing in a few curveballs to make things interesting. So yeah, let's start with the vision check. So where do you guys all see Cosmos Hub in the next 12 months, and how do you foresee its overall direction shaping up? We can start with Carter, Ethan, and then Noam.
Well, I think the next 12 months is a consolidation of energy, focus, and capital. I think if there's one thing I walk away with Cosmoverse this week, is the hub has an incredibly bright future between its security offering, hydro and liquidity, and other like product stuff in the works. I think we're very well prepared for 2025, maybe better than any other year, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Best place to launch a chain. Just gave a talk about it. Maybe you saw. That's what we've been focused on, and we think there's a lot of opportunity for growth in that, for really helping not just launching the chains, but helping them scale, access services for chains that already exist, access liquidity, connect to other ecosystems. Really let the hub solve real problems. Noam gave a great talk on that. I think on Monday in the executive lounge. You should check that out as well. Yeah.
Just watch the talk in the executive lounge sometime.
Just re-give the talk.
I mean, I can only echo that. Like, it depends on the level of granularity. Like at a high level, yes, we're all working together. We're launching great products. But like, what does that really mean? I think it's important that we recognize the challenges. The challenges are that there are so many different entities involved. It's like informal systems, DAO, binary builders, ICF, HIFA, Skip, whatever, a bunch of things. Crypto crew, all the other validators. That's hugely challenging. I think that's the biggest thing that we got to solve for, like how we approach that. Once we do, and I want to let everyone know, like, we are having very, very meaningful conversations between those groups, and we're really working towards trying to do this as either a single organization or functioning as if we were a single organization. Once we do that, it's going to become a lot more easier to come forward with ideas that we can all agree to.
Okay. Well,
what about you?
I mean, so for me, I'm really just a key supporter in the winning narrative, and that means that what community consensus is, what the leaders are aspiring to.
That's a cop-out.
So it is a cop-out.
Tell us what you think.
Fair enough. Okay.
Be your own man.
I want Adam to be the basically the blood flow of Cosmos ecosystem.
All right.
Whether you figure out through hydro, whether it's POL distributions, some way or another, I think Adam should be a permanent capital of the Cosmos ecosystem, where it's growing, expanding as new innovations come.
So let's talk about that.
Let's do it.
I actually don't think that we need to do that. And here's why. Because I think this is like the fundamental perspective that we've had incorrect, where it's like, we have to focus on the value of Atom. We have to bring Atom everywhere. Atom has to be capital. Atom has to be money, and like this and that. And I think when you're building products and when you're running a business, and the Cosmos Hub, I just said that, but the Cosmos Hub is a business. You just got to solve problems that exist today. And the moment you start solving problems for real people, which is like, it's still pretty hard to launch a chain. It's still pretty hard to interoperate. It's still pretty hard to obtain liquidity. Chain abstraction is still difficult. On-ramping is still difficult. Blah, blah, blah. Like, the moment we start solving those problems and bring value to people, the value will essentially at some point, come back to Atom. But I think that it needs to be the priority focus. And I think we need to stop thinking about like, Atom needs to be default capital everywhere and all that stuff. We need to just solve real problems that people experience today.
Okay. All right. Since we're on the product focus, then how do you envision the hub evolving as a product in the Cosmos ecosystem? What features are crucial for this?
Right. So I see three critical verticals. One is blockchain development, blockchain deployment. I think like ICS is close to making that a little easier. I think we can do it much more easier. Forge helps with this as well. Yeah, I feel like I was just here an hour ago explaining like what my ideal vision was for how to
From the top.
Yeah, from the top, exactly. But basically, I see the Cosmos Hub in that specific vertical as a blockchain as a service provider, where ideally you have a Netlify or Vercel-like experience where you just click, 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 and your chain is live, and the validators, relayers, and everything else is sorted for you. The second vertical that I think is very interesting is interoperability, and I think it's still very difficult in the general Web3 space, but not just Cosmos, but everywhere. And I think the Hub can play a critical role here in the advancement of IBC. And the third one is liquidity. I think Hydro is a really great start there. I think we can do much more. And there's probably a few other verticals that we can think about, like chain abstraction and on-ramping, but that's still relatively early. But I think it's important to start analyzing those things in those different categories, and then to start developing products based on user research, based on the conversations that we have all the time with the teams that are launching chains, that are experiencing issues as they launch.
Ethan, I know you talked about Forge and Hydro, but is that your envision for 2025?
I mean, I think those are a foundation for building like a larger ecosystem around the hub. I think the big thing the hub needs to enable beyond that is really connectivity to other ecosystems, and there's kind of a mess of bridges and connections to ETH and so on, and so really providing, especially through like a canonical IBC channel using the new IBC Eureka as a simplified version of IBC, the teams have been working on to enable a direct connection to ETH and let ETH flow through the hub to the rest of the other ecosystem, and use the hub as a kind of IBC router. Now that there's so many more chains online, have it really serve as an entry point into the ecosystem, a connection to centralized exchanges and to other chains to provide routes to the rest of the Cosmos. So I think that'll be likely a big focus, and that'll be really important for chains that are launching who want access to that kind of liquidity, and through Forge, and also for Hydro that'll want to potentially be able to export that liquidity, possibly Hydro can take not just from community pools, but people with the capital can also put it up. So having that kind of connection will allow a lot more liquidity to flow into the ecosystem.
I think the thing that keeps me up at night is the network effects and the flywheels, right? Because to date with Cosmos, there has been kind of a dispersion throughout the interchain where people are choosing to not necessarily align with the hub, and there's a variety of reasons why that's happening. But now we're turning a corner. Now we have a better and better product offering, and how can we nail this cycle of helping, first discovering the entrepreneurs of the next generation of Cosmos chains, and help them launch in a way where they want Atom to be front and center. They want to be hub aligned from a mindshare perspective, from a liquidity perspective, from a community perspective, right? So I think we have a lot of work to do on tightening the loop and making people feel pulled to the hub once again, understanding that there's energy, momentum, passion, traction in a focused and productive way.
Okay. While we're on the topic of community, let's talk about community and governance. Governance has long been one of the major drama points for the hub, and in Cosmos Hub we're known for drama per second instead
DPS
of per second. Yep.
Where's the DPS at right now?
I'd say it's pretty
Max.
low, right? I think we're doing.
How about
best
3 weeks
to minimize
ago?
It. We'll see. But I mean, how do you think we can improve on the community involvement and streamline decision making a little bit?
Can I make a suggestion?
Go ahead.
Ban governance, no. No, so I think the issue, what happens when you have sort of a power void, or a power vacuum is the word, so there's a gap of decisions, people aren't really coming forward with there's not enough powerful projects that are being put forward. What happens is that everyone just starts coming up with stuff, right? We can't actually design by committee. Design by committee doesn't work. If you get 100 people in the room, you say, hey, come up with something cool, they're going to come up with something terrible, and they're never going to agree with anything. So we have to realize that this is a fundamental sort of flaw in how collaboration essentially works. And to address this issue, I think the pipeline of coming to an idea and coming to an agreement at the end is essentially you have a relatively small group of people that initiate ideas, and then they start finding alignment within the core teams, and then essentially slowly to a semi-public process and then to a fully public process and getting feedback. the way that it's working right now is essentially it's continuously a public process, and that just slows us down. And like the moments you don't have the space to even ideate. That the best thing that I enjoy the most is to sit in a group with two people and be like, hey, you know, for example with Halo, right? So I had this idea of Halo. It's like, oh, okay, so I just riff on that with a bunch of people, and I will say stupid shit. I say stupid shit all the time, and I will make poor decisions all the time in the beginning. But that's the point, right? So we're talking about it. But the moment you move that to the public space, everything is constantly scrutinized, and we need to make sure that we have that process better. And that also comes with like better accountability structures, better hierarchy. We need to function a little bit more like a corporation and less like a bunch of high school kids.
Amen. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Being able to like actually structure discussion so it's not just an open free for all.
Yeah.
And then have like a coherent and clear way to bring it to then open up the discussion.
Yeah.
I mean it's hard to do that dance between like it's not that people want to be secretive. They want to be able to be productive in small group conversations. I mean everyone has the experience that small meetings are bigger than small meetings are more productive than large meetings, right? Like probably many of your meetings at companies, once there's more than like 3 people on them, they're just like not as productive anymore, right? And so figuring out how to scale that while still maintaining like transparency and accessibility, I think is the real challenge. I think we can look at kind of other communities and how they've done it well. I mean, maybe they don't have the same level of like on-chain governance, but having more rigorous processes of like long-form communication on ideas, and and trying to use the forum for that. And we tried to roll out the CHIPS process, right? The Cosmos Hub improvement proposals, but there's limits to how much that can do. Yeah.
Well, let's also look at like how let's talk about Atom 2.0, like the white paper, right, and how that happened. Because what happened really was there was a small group of people that worked on this, and Carter, you were part of this as well, right? Like, no, you weren't part of it? I thought you were involved. No,
I'm a newcomer.
Oh, you're a newcomer. Sorry. My bad. Sorry. It's all his fault. No. But so the issue with that was the issue with that was it was like a bunch of different products. Some of them were really cool, and it was all put in this giant paper. And it's like, all right, go ahead and read it, yes or no. The way I would take this, what I would do, and I would think we should be doing, is like we cut that into pieces, and we have 3 layers of complexity. The first one is 5-minute videos explaining how this thing works with graphics and animation, and that's just for everybody. And then there's another one, which is like a super, like light article or a blog post, and then there is like an actual light paper for each individual vertical. And I think it's very important that as we think about how to work together as separate organizations, we should also think much more strongly about how we go to market with vision.
Exactly.
And that's something we've failed in the past, and we can totally do this right. We just have to, really.
It's funny you say that. This is actually something I was advocating for with Atom 2.0 to make it less about the paper and more about the campaign, right? We're trying to create a story around a vision. We're trying to get a new narrative to catch on. It's not just like put out a paper and now adopt the paper. I think the challenge we had is just the organizational complexity, right? Organizing a go-to-market, a coherent and consistent go-to-market campaign across so many organizations without, clear funding or clear like accountability and authority has been really difficult. So, one of the key things we're looking for and advocating for in 2025 is a single consolidated like product and business leader that everyone can kind of get behind and have clear, accountability with, and that would help these sorts of things move forward.
I'll be honest. I'll say that in my opinion, I feel like community members should have
a say.
Should have a say, but minimal say. I think the market has a say for itself. And based on reflecting on the price of the token. So what I mean is have a coordinated foundation with individual sub-DAOs for product, engineering, R&D, where we can all align and coordinate to push a single narrative. I think that coordination layer is extremely crucial for moving forward. And there are government proposals where most of the community members don't truly understand what is actually happening. There are technical sides of things that are far from understanding from an average retail perspective. So I don't think those should really be on governance proposals. Rather, those should be voted on by councils of these sub-DAOs to make it a bit more organized.
My take on this is that ultimately community is a mirror to your leaders, right? And so there's been a lot of entropy within the hub since Atom 2.0, and so the community ends up kind of embodying that. There's like probably a dozen different micro leaders on crypto Twitter, and then above that you have your other leaders. And so it's really a mirror. So I think we have to take responsibility for the fact that it isn't the community's fault that there was a lack of clarity.
Totally.
Right? They are mirrors of our entropy. So now it's our job as collective leaders to lead decisively. And I think the community will actually appreciate that. They will mirror that values. Yes, there will be the friction of people getting used to this new, like, whoa, hub in 2025, like, clear go-to-market strategy.
Yeah.
We're cooking. This isn't like 20 people in the kitchen running in different directions. This is unified energy, and it's going to be weird. There's going to be people that like the status quo of just infinite governance, entropy of the last 2 years. Some people thrive in that. Some people love that, but that's not winning, right? It's
Chaos.
time for the hub to win.
Yeah.
So when Cosmos Hub presidential election?
That's what we're advocating for, unified leadership.
I've said it before, but we need an AI president for the hub.
AI. That's it. AI.
Truth terminal.
Truth terminal. Let it
So
run.
I've been quite inspired by the, I want your take on this, by like the Italian city-state models. So like, I think the Venetians had some crazy model where they'd like randomly elect 30 guys who would then like, pare it down to 9, who would then elect like 45 guys, who would pare it down to 12, and they'd just keep going back and forth until there was like, 9, and then the 9 would rule for like a month or something, or a year or something. And then in Florence, it was like way simpler. It was just pick nine balls out of a hat, they rule for 2 months, and then fully change it over the next 2 months. What do we think?
Maybe that turnaround time seems a little too much for me.
I think that's too quick because like you have something you're working on. It takes many months, even years to come to fruition. And if you're going to switch coordinators around, you're going to switch the mindset, and it's hard to get things done that way. My idea was more of like an executive branch of the hub, run by AI, feed it all the data, all the golf props. And have it make.
What does that mean, run by? Have it make calls, and then we have to do what it says?
No, not do what it says.
What if it's like delusional?
Well then,
I think we're gonna skip the AI thing. Maybe
it's just more of like a. It was more of like a trial and error basis. So you see how it goes, like a pilot program.
Yeah.
But this does prove a good point that like Solana and Ethereum, they're all going with these very neutral, like we're just tech stacks. We don't want any governance. Stay away from governance. But I think the next like 20, 30 years of crypto, governance experimentation, we've literally just barely scratched the surface. We're so primitive and far off from like a digital sovereign state. And so I think some of the most exciting experimentation in Cosmos in the next 20 years will be governance. But you have to have something valuable to govern first.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That's the first step. But we shouldn't give up on governance as an experiment. It's one of the most like amazing features of Cosmos as a long tail opinionated stance on like capital management. But we maybe did it a little bit too soon, a little too aggressive, and that's the great human experiment of governance, and it's going to be fun.
Okay. Yeah. So let's switch over a little bit and talk about a winning narrative. Carter, you gave a speech 2 days ago based on the pick and choose presentation. So how do we find a single winning narrative that is Lindy and sticks, right? What narrative do you guys think has the most staying power for the hub over the next year?
Do you want to list your...
Oh gosh, I mean there's multiple options. Kind of the whole point of the opening keynote is the hub could go many different directions. You could go hyper atomification where you have like selective state pruning, you get rid of gov, you get rid of the community approval, like super extreme ideas there. Or you could go a route where you say, hey, hub shouldn't try to compete with the Interchain. We invest $45 million into the Interchain and it becomes a massive like venture fund. Yeah. Or we go like aggregate security offering where we're going to go venture plus hydro plus PSS and it's launch. That's the theme. And then maybe you have security minimalism, which is still like an open question that hasn't necessarily been entirely resolved. So point is we have to pick one direction. We have scarce capital, scarce mind share. Let's pick a direction, and I'm very curious to see what you would envision for 2025.
Well, I mean, we've been focused on best place to launch. It means launch and scale and grow, and I guess that's probably closest to your aggregate vision. Mm-hmm. I think a few years ago when after kind of the Cosmos Humpty Dumpty fell apart, and there was basically no hub team, I started pushing the ICF to really invest in the hub. Like we need to rebuild a team, and Sam and I put forth this like port city vision, which I think was really attractive. The Cosmos Hub is a port city, And with the best place to launch, we sort of feel like we're kind of boiling the port city vision down to the simplest framing, right?
Yep.
And I think the challenge with having with realizing the port city was that we put out that vision, but then the hub still didn't have a team for like 2-3 years, right? Now it does. Now all these foundations are laid. Like we're ready to accelerate, and we can get back on that. And so whether you want to call it the aggregate offering, that's probably not very attractive.
We can come up with a better term.
Call it the port city or the best place to launch a chain. I think is
launch.
Maybe launch doesn't quite capture.
That's also true.
Because there's more to it than it's launch and scale or something like that. But yeah.
I've always seen the Cosmos Hub as a service provider that supports the advancement of the interchain stack.
Yeah.
So IBC expansion, Cosmos SDK expansion, Cosmosm and all these other things. In order to help this tech stack expand, we need to solve problems that people experience when using this tech stack. So to me, that does go around, again, deployment, interoperability, liquidity, all these things. To me, that makes the most sense. Again, I said it last time, but like when we think about what we want to do, we need to not think about the tech stack and what we can do with it or what we ideally want the Atom token to be or whatever. We need to think about what are people struggling with today. They're struggling with chain launching. It's very complicated. They're struggling with interop. They're struggling with liquidity. They're struggling with fiat on-ramping. They're struggling with chain abstraction. These are issues that we can work on today, right? We know how to do these things. We know what to build. Like I myself have, with Halo, I've been like, all right, hey, this solves proof of stake. This solves the cost of launching a chain. Like these are the ways that we need to think about what to do. And I think, again, like you bring value to your customers, and it comes back. And so that narrative to me is just we're a service provider to the advancement of the interchain stack. That seems to be the most. But that's maybe not a narrative that you can sell externally. Externally, it's like, all right, I know blockchain as a service is a tainted name, so you can't really, that sounds like a roll up as a service provider kind of thing. But we need to find the right words for that to to retail. That's not something I do. That's something that we'll do with marketing people, right? And we need to work on that. But I think product first, solving problems first, based on that suite that you have, that product suite. Then you start saying, okay, well, how can we carve a comprehensive narrative around this? That's how I would approach that, essentially.
Do you see Halo playing part of that?
I would love to see Halo playing part of that, and I think it's very important. For those who don't know, Halo is sort of a thing that helps you launch light chains. It's not quite a roll-up, it's not quite proof of authority, but it removes proof of stake, and it makes it possible for you to launch a chain that doesn't have too many operational costs attached to it so that you can find product market fit. And maybe over time, you can become like a full L1 and all that stuff. So that's Halo, and I'd love to see that be a part of it. I think that is a missing piece. If I look at the average inflation rate of Cosmos chains right now, it's about 10%. I think that's one of the reasons why token performance hasn't done so well. I think it's also one of the reasons why most of the liquidity that we want to have seen in these liquidity pools, it's actually stuck in staking, and I think that's like a big issue. So yeah, I think Halo is a critical part of this. But we have to see what the community agrees, of course, and then we have to see if like the collective of groups that are currently thinking about these problems, if we can all align on this. And I'm very bullish on the fact that we can, and all the other products as well. And I think in a few months from now, we'll be able to actually come forward with hopefully a cool idea. Yeah.
I'd like to pose a question. What do we think the biggest edge is for Cosmos right now? Because we have many other competing ecosystems that are rapidly entering towards Cosmos ideas. And so the window is closing, but it's also opening because we continue to innovate and push new ideas. But I'm curious from your guys' perspective, new builder comes. They have this whole world of Web3 to pick. Why are they going to pick Cosmos over some of these alternative ecosystems? What is the biggest edge, in your guys' opinion, that our ecosystem presents to these people, to these builders?
You're all looking at me.
I would say most of the innovation has come from Cosmos, and it's likely going to continue to come from here. So on top of that, we have arguably the best tech stack. So if for teams that want to build, they want to build utilizing the best tech stack, and they want to build in an area where you have probably the most valuable developers in terms of mind share, and I think that's where we excel.
I think that's right. I mean, I still hear from devs that they tried out, some roll-up stack, or they tried out some other offering, and they built for a while, and they said, what, we need more power, we need more flexibility, and there's no stack that gives it to us the way Cosmos does, and so they come they come for that tech stack. And some of the top chains in the ecosystem still, maybe they don't like identify as Cosmos. Like, I guess part of the ideal of Cosmos that you can identify as whatever the hell you want.
Yeah.
But they're using the Cosmos stack. They're drawn by the values of sovereignty and interoperability and the power that the Cosmos stack provides. So we can't rest on our laurels. And obviously, it's not tech alone can't win. You need the BD, you need the marketing, you need the growth, you need the distribution. And we've had basically none of that, right? And if we can solve that, and we can create space, which we've been trying to do both at the ICF and on the hub, to create space for folks to come together in kind of a unified way, maybe for the first time, to address those issues of marketing, growth, BD, to add that to our incredible tech stack, we can just accelerate.
Oh.
So it seems to me like we need marketing, growth, BD, and coordination as the core problems to address.
Amen.
All right. So with that, I'll close it off with a question. Cosmos recently has had negative reputation almost. Atom is associated with it. Teams don't want to be associated with it. How do we address that, and how do we make Cosmos cool as fuck again?
Something I've been wondering about is that a lot of the leaders in other ecosystems, like Mert and Joe Lubin and Brian Armstrong, they're all bald. And I look around, and we have so much hair.
You got to shave.
Maybe we just need to all shave our heads.
Yeah, I mean, that's what my mind is saying for a long time now.
Anyone got a razor? Let's do it, man.
I see two problems here, right here.
We're the issue.
I thought it was all about Samson, but apparently not.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is a real. I think the moment you start again, just bring value to people, solve problems, get people excited to do a thing, make that experience delightful and enjoyable, and have people have a good time building things. The moment that happens, that association, that positive association will start spreading, and that needs to apply to developers, needs to apply to retail, institutional as well. It's a vertical that we haven't really explored properly anyway. The thing I want to say though is we have been tech first for many years, and we've got great tech. It's time that we go from tech first to growth first. That's all we need to be doing, and that's going to be 2025.
Yeah, I think in my mind, the greatest edge the Cosmos has is its culture, is the people themselves. And I think to turn things around, we need to make the Cosmos Hub a center, it continues to be a center for pioneering and innovation and excitement. Like the energy in the room back in 2019, 2020, 2021, you were there. I'd imagine it was electric. There was a infinite possibility. And the beautiful part is there still is infinite possibility. Like we're still ground zero, but we need to bring that passion and excitement back, because the bear market has slaughtered a lot of builders, a lot of the morale, but we can be the ones to get excited again before these other ecosystems do, and to build for the sake of building, to see how far we can push these things. That's what got us here in the first place, and that's what's going to continue to separate Cosmos from all these other ecosystems, as we have the greatest experimenters, the greatest tinkerers, and the most passion.
You're here.
All right.
Amen.
Thank you, everybody.
All right.